In part one of How to Snakes, the Teachening, we talked about the general structure that you should use when teaching most games. This time, we're going to talk about when you should deviate from that structure and provide some extra tips that will improve your game teaching game. Not every game is going to need that specific structure, but for a lot of them, it'll work well. Sometimes you'll meet a game where certain pieces of information are so important to player understanding that none of the other rules will make any sense unless they've heard those specific things. For example, with Pandemic, I find it's crucial for players to understand how viruses work and the different ways that the game can beat the players. The more you teach the same game, the more you'll understand when you need to deviate from the general structure and when you don't. You'll also learn how to tailor your teach to specific groups because everyone learns a little differently. No matter what you're teaching though, it's a good idea to get the players involved with the teach from as early a point as possible. Hey gang, can you do me a favor? Shuffle that deck and then deal 4 cards to each of you. Some games have a really good setup guide, and with those sorts of games, you can just give them the instructions, flip to the right page, and the players can handle all the setup themselves, and that frees you up to focus just on teaching the games. When players are asking questions, that's a good sign that they are engaged in learning the game. Unfortunately, if they ask too many questions, it can bog down your teach. Now, children are especially notorious for this sort of thing because they will just ask whatever question pops into their mind whenever it occurs to them. What I like to do is ask people to hold their questions until I'm done my teach, and then if I haven't addressed your question, you can ask it then. It's a good idea to periodically check for understanding with the table just to make sure that everyone is up to speed on the game and you haven't lost anyone. If you see nothing but blank stares, then you know there's a problem. So, if 3 1s earn you 1 star and 3 2s earn you 2 stars, what do you get for 3 3s? If they can't answer that, you know you've got to start fresh. One universal experience is seeing customers struggle with complicated games. Some games are complicated for good reason. They're very intricate, they're large, and not everyone is willing to put in the time and effort that it takes to learn these sorts of games. But some games are overly complicated for no really good reason. And so we as a team are constantly looking for ways that we can edit these games to make them easier to learn. Many people struggle with scoring fields in Carcassonne. One way to deal with that is to teach the game without farms, and then, on a group's second run at the game, we introduce farms and farmers. Headbands uses these plastic victory point chips. You start with 5, and every time you guess a card correctly, you give up one of your chips. Or you could just use the cards as points. Every time you guess one correctly, you keep it, and then you can forget the chips completely. Some games edit themselves. Flashpoint from Kevin Lanzig and Indie Boards and Cards provides an advanced version and a family version, which is much simpler. So, if you're playing with people who have never played Pandemic or other co-op games, just ignore the advanced components. What game teaching tips work for you? Do you have a favorite trick that helps learning a game go faster? If so, tell us about it in the comments below. Did I just save Spin Master countless thousands of dollars in production costs? Why yes, yes I did. You're welcome, Spin Master.